When evaluating defamation, the law has traditionally analyzed static text on a printed page, but modern human beings evaluate information dynamically. The words are the same, but the delivery mechanism morphs into a chaotic digital feed. For decades, courts assessed written statements using the legal standard of the ordinary reasonable reader. This standard assumes a specific type of consumption. It expects a reader sitting with a newspaper or a book, taking the time to parse sentences, consider grammar, and digest the information deliberately. Applying that deliberate, print-era standard to a platform engineered for infinite, rapid scrolling creates immediate legal friction. Digital platforms strip away the traditional context provided by an editorial board. Instead, they present users with a relentless stream of raw, reactionary data. The container holding the words alters how those words are processed by the human brain. Evaluating digital speech requires a legal framework that accounts for the medium itself. The defining test for this modern reality arrived with the 2019 case of Stalker v. Stalker. The clash between centuries-old defamation law and new media eventually reached the United Kingdom Supreme Court. At this highest appellate level, the justices had to determine exactly how digital speech should be prosecuted. In their ruling, the Supreme Court officially decoupled the legal evaluation of digital defamation from the semantics of print media. The court determined that when evaluating statements made on social media, lower courts must abandon the use of dictionary definitions. To accurately capture digital meaning, the law must adopt the reading habits of the digital user. The facts of the case center on a highly contentious exchange. Following a separation, a couple engaged in an escalating argument within a public Facebook comment thread. During this exchange, the appellant published a specific, allegedly defamatory phrase about her ex-husband. She wrote, "He tried to strangle me." In defamation law, the trial court was required to follow the single meaning rule. This rule mandates that a court must extract one, and only one, definitive interpretation of the disputed words before deciding if they cause reputational harm. To find this single meaning, the trial judge applied the exact same methodology they would use to interpret a commercial real estate contract or a printed broadsheet. The judge isolated the verb strangle and subjected it to strict lexical analysis, completely removing it from the context of a fast-moving online argument. To establish the legal definition of the word, the trial court consulted the definitive reference tool, the Oxford English Dictionary. The strict definition provided by the dictionary reads, "to squeeze the neck or windpipe, with intent to kill." Because the facts showed the respondent did not have lethal intent during their physical altercation, the lower court concluded the Facebook comment was technically false. Therefore, the statement was ruled defamatory. Litigators refer to this methodological error as the dictionary fallacy. It is the legal mistake of assuming that everyday digital users compose their posts with the meticulous precision of a lexicographer. Upon review, Lord Kerr delivered the Supreme Court's rebuttal, rejecting the trial judge's rigid, print-centric methodology entirely. The Supreme Court observed that social media platforms are inherently conversational, built for rapid reactions, and ultimately ephemeral. This heat map illustrates the Supreme Court's core user experience argument. Reading behavior physically changes when humans interact with digital screens. Users scrolling through a feed do not pause to perform lexical analysis on individual verbs. They do not consider the formal etymology or the dictionary constraints of the vocabulary they are scanning. Instead, the Supreme Court ruled that digital users absorb a fast, general impression of a post. This general impression stands in direct opposition to the trial court's slow, dictionary-driven dissection of the text. The architecture of social media actively discourages the measured, reasonable analysis expected when reading traditional print. With this new standard established, the Supreme Court applied the impressionistic digital metric back to the disputed word, strangle. This split-screen logic tree compares the divergent legal outcomes. On the left, the print standard forces strangle through a dictionary, requiring an intent to kill. On the right, the digital standard routes the word through social media context. The court determined that an ordinary reader, scanning a fast-moving online argument, would interpret the phrase merely as grasped by the neck. The factual record of the physical altercation confirmed that the respondent had, in fact, grasped her by the neck. Evaluated under this contextual digital definition, the appellant's statement was found to be factually true. The Supreme Court overturned the defamation ruling. The digital platform medium is now a primary, legally recognized variable in calculating the meaning of written words. For litigators operating in the space of digital torts, Stalker v. Stalker dictates a distinct change in trial strategy. Relying on dictionaries to argue the strict etymology of an online post is now a losing approach. Legal arguments regarding meaning must center exclusively on user experience and the environmental context of the platform where the words were published. The modern law cannot hold the public to a standard of reading that the platform's architecture actively dismantles. The reasonable reader of the 20th century has been permanently replaced by the reasonable scroller.